At the very beginning of any effort to make changes of any magnitude, if a sense of urgency is not high enough and complacency is not low enough, everything else becomes so much more difficult. The difficulties add up to produce failure, pain, disappointment, and that distressing 70% figure. Second, complacency is much more common than we might think, and very often invisible to the people involved. Success easily produces complacency. It does not even have to be recent success. An organization's many years of prosperity could have ended a decade ago, and yet the complacency created by that prosperity can live on, often because the people involved don't see it. A smart, sophisticated manager can be oblivious to the fact that 2 levels below him in the hierarchy is an organization so complacent that his dreams of the future will never be realized. That same manager can sometimes be just as oblivious to the fact that he, too, is being dangerously complacent. Third, the opposite of urgency is not only complacency, it's also a false or misguided sense of urgency that is as prevalent today as complacency itself, and even more insidious. With a false sense of urgency, an organization does have a great deal of energized action, but it's driven by anxiety, anger, and frustration, and not a focused determination to win, and win as soon as is reasonably possible. With false urgency, the action has a frantic feeling, running from meeting to meeting, producing volumes of paper, moving rapidly in circles, all with a dysfunctional orientation that often prevents people from exploiting key opportunities and addressing gnawing problems. Fourth, mistaking what you might call false urgency from real urgency is a huge problem today. People constantly see the frenzied action, assume that it represents true urgency, and then move ahead only to encounter problems and failures not unlike what would happen if they were surrounded by complacency. Task forces underperform. Enterprises underperform. People are hurt, sometimes badly. Fifth, it most certainly is possible to recognize false urgency and complacency and transform each into a true sense of urgency. There is a strategy. There are practical tactics. The bulk of this book describes these methods. Sixth, urgency is becoming increasingly important because change is shifting from episodic to continuous. With episodic change, there is one big issue, such as making and integrating the largest acquisition in a firm's history. With continuous change, some combination of acquisitions, new strategies, big IT projects, reorganizations, and the like comes at you in an almost ceaseless flow. With episodic change, the challenge of creating a sufficient sense of urgency comes in occasional spurts. With continuous change, creating and sustaining a sufficient sense of urgency are always a necessity. These 2 different kinds of change will continue to challenge us, but in a world where the rate of change appears to be going up and up, we are experiencing a more global shift from episodic to continuous, with huge implications for the issue of urgency and performance. Put simply, a strong sense of urgency is moving from an essential element in big change programs to an essential asset in general. I have talked about urgency before as a part of the 8 steps of successful change. So, what is new here? Readers of my past books on leadership and change should think of this book as digging much deeper than I have before into a topic that I now see as much more important than before. Here I offer a broader and deeper view of urgency, including a clear distinction between constructive, true urgency and destructive, false urgency, an expanded set of tactics for creating true urgency, and numerous examples gathered in just the past few years of complacency problems and solutions. The many stories in this book are about failures and successes. At least one is about a 62-year-old CEO, another about a 27-year-old recent university graduate.